My favorite channel is Nickelodeon, and I particularly enjoy superhero series. My favorite superhero series is the Thundermans and Henry Danger. For this tutorial, we're going to be talking about superheroes. And welcome again. My name is Oluwatayo. I'll be your tutor for today, and we'll continue talking about the lookup functions in Microsoft Excel. So we have a superhero and a sidekick thing going on with one super duper important lookup function, or lookup functions, because they are two in one. They are the super and the almighty index and match. A lot of people have asked me, how would you explain index and match? How would you explain it? Because it gets confusing, and trust me, it could be counterintuitive at times. It could be very funny and interesting. But let's look at it from the superhero angle, and who's the superhero and who is its sidekick. Now, index and match in itself, there are two different distinct lookup functions, or there are two different Microsoft Excel functions, but when combined together, this duo can be very powerful, and they would search any amount of data set and bring you the exact thing that you need. Now, let's look at the superhero thing. Captain Man is a superhero and Henry Danger is the sidekick, right? So in this case, index and match are like the superhero and the sidekick. Index is the superhero and match is our sidekick. So what does index do? Think of index as the superhero that can pinpoint the location of any criminal, wherever the criminal is, but that at best, that's its superpower. It can only pinpoint the location of that particular criminal. However, think of match as that guy, the sidekick that then comes to the scene to say, okay, it is good that you found the location. I would go and fish out the criminal, right? So match comes to the scene and brings you the exact, goes into that location and brings you the criminal. All right, so let's look at the arguments inside index. We'll treat index separately and we'll treat match separately, then we'll combine the two of them. All right, so let's quickly look at the arguments inside index. Index has array, row number, and column number. All right, briefly, we'll quickly look at index. Index has the array, the row number. That's the array, the row number, and the column number. Now, how do we use index? Look at this data table that I have here. Index basically returns the value after you have specified the coordinates. Again, let me take it slow. Now, in index, remember you have the array, you have the row number, and you have the column number. Row number, think of them like your X and Y coordinates when we were younger, or in our elementary mathematics, where you have the X and Y coordinates, or where you have the longitude and the latitude, right? So that's what index has. Index has the array, that is where the large expanse of land, and the coordinates that now pinpoints the exact location, right? Your X and Y coordinate, or your longitude and the latitude, right? So that's what index does. Now, if on this table that I have here, this table basically the table of the name and the age of some people. I don't know who they are. Now, what index would do in this case is, so let's assume I want to find age, right? What index would help me do here is I necessarily need to specify the array, the large expanse of land, right? And this time around is age, so which means I want to dwell within the age expanse of land. And I then need to specify the row number, the column number, or I could extend my large expanse of land to cover the entire table, and I'll still also need to specify my row number and my column number. So what index does is there's an intersection. It gets the intersection and returns what is there for you. So let's quickly look at it. So if I wanted to go by index, specifying just one column for it, to say I want to narrow it down to, since it's age I'm looking for, what that would look like is I will call equal to index, open my bracket, and I will have my array. My array would then be from this C1, let's assume C1 to C5. So that's my array, C1 to C5. Row number, now that's where the interesting part comes. The row number and the column number. Remember, I want to get age. Let's say I want to get age for Emily, right? Emily is on row 5, right? So I want to get age for Emily, and Emily is on row 5. Now, the row number, I have to specify it for index. So I then need to tell Excel to count. So depending on what I've highlighted as my array, it's from C1. So I have to tell Excel to count from C1 to 3, 4, 5. So that's my row number. I have row number 5. And my column number would be what column? Since I only specified one column, and this last argument is an optional argument. Once I'm working with one column, I can choose not to fulfill it, right? So in this case, I can choose to close my bracket or just write 1, and I'll go, and it will return 32 as the age of Emily. In the case where I'm working not with one column, where I'm not working with one column, then I need to specify both the row number and the column number. So let's say, for example, instead of my array to be C1 to C5, I choose an array like A1 to C5. So it will be index A1 to, what's that? To C5. And I'll have to tell it, since it's Emily I'm looking for, Emily is on row 5. So my row number is row 5. And my column number, this time around, my column number has shifted. I highlighted from column A. So my column number, I now have to specify it, or else it's through an error. Now I have to specify my column number to be column 1, column 2, column 3. So column 3, and it would also return the age of Emily, which is 32. Right, that would be correct. However, this is very heartbreaking and not entirely fantastic, especially if you have a large data set. I mean, do you necessarily now need to start counting, row number and column number, row number and column number every now and then? It's not effective. It's not entirely effective for you. So the trick now is to look for another sidekick that can help you return the row number and the column number to. I can return the row number and the column number to index. And that's where match comes in. That's the sidekick. And that's why they have a powerful duo, kind of, right? So that's where match comes, because match now comes to exactly pinpoint and pick it out. Pick out your criminal, or pick out who you want to pick out from the entire data set. So let's look at the arguments inside the match function. We have lookup value. We have lookup array. We're already familiar with arguments like this already. And we have the match type. Usually, for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to be working with an exact match. Now, to say it in a different way, you have the argument inside match has the what, the where, and the closest match to it. So we use the exact match. So let's quickly look at how match naturally would function. So if I wanted match naturally would function and return, remember we said it will return numbers to index so that it will now bring out the exact value. Now, match basically returns numbers, like we said. Of course, you could have thought of, okay, so I could use any other function that returns numbers. You could use count or count A. However, I mean, they wouldn't do the work. They are not best combined with index to serve as a lookup function. So because match has lookup value, lookup array, and all of that as its argument. So let's look at match. Match will basically ask you, what are you looking for? Then I can reference Emily, right? Because I'm looking for Emily's age, right? Lookup array, where should I look for Emily? And what's the match type? You basically tell it. So let's quickly look at how match would work here. So in this case, I'll tell Excel, instead of using index here, if I wanted to use just match, so I know, because remember, match would return numbers, right? Match will return number, that is a position where, so let's quickly look at Emily using match. So it will be something like match, and match would come in and it will ask you, what is the lookup value? I can reference Emily or put Emily in double quotation and make it as a text. So I'm going to tell it Emily, is it I tell you Emily and put it as a quotation mark like that, or I reference the cell. If this was a cell, let's say it's whatever, let's say this is B12 or something, I could reference it, right? Now, the next argument says the lookup array. So basically match is asking you, where should I look for Emily? Now in this case, for the purpose of lookup, when you want to match it with index, when you want to use index and match together, it's a one-way street. whatever array you are specifying, that's to be one column or one row, depending on the direction you're taking. So in this case, match is a one-way street. That guy would only look into one thing. So where should he look for Emily? Emily is in the name column, right? So I would reference cell B1 to B5. So that's my lookup array, B1 to B5. And what's my match type? It's an exact match. So I'm going to put 0, and by the time it comes back, it basically tells me what's in there. So basically that's how index works separately, and that's how match works separately. Now let's attempt to join both of them together here. Now, to use index and match, so we would, let's say this time around, we're now looking for, so in match would basically return the relative position of where, it will return the relative position of where Emily is. So in this case, we said, look for Emily in this table array and give us an exact match. So it will basically tell us the position where Emily is. So I think Emily is in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It will basically tell us where Emily is on the table. Now, when we get to Microsoft Excel environment, we'll work it out. Now, let's now attempt to match the two of them, or to merge the two of them together. That is index and match. Now, in this case, we now want to use index and match to look for the age. Let's say the age of Emily, or let's say the age of Sarah. Sarah is in row 3, right? So let's attempt to use that to look for the age of Sarah. We'll use index and I'll use match. Now again, I'm looking for, what am I looking for? I'm looking for the age of Sarah. So age, so I'll introduce my index. I'll open my brackets. Now, what is the array? What am I looking for again? I'm looking for the age. What's the array where the age is, right? Again, this time around, I'm looking for Sarah, not Emily. So Sarah, I'm looking for Sarah's age. So I'm looking for Sarah, and I needed to, so I'll reference Sarah when I get to lookup value so that it will give me the age. So I'm looking for, so what are you looking for? We're looking for the age. So the array, what we're hoping to find. So our reference is, remember, this time around, because I want to use it for lookup purposes, I'll reference just one column. Now, what's the age of, so what's the array here? That's like C1 to C5, C1 to C5. And now remember the next argument inside index and match, or sorry, the next argument inside index is row number and column number. And we don't want to be counting. We want another function to supply that for index. So we would then introduce our match. Within it, while the bracket is still open, so we'll call match, right? When we call match basically then asks us, okay, these are the arguments in match. What's your lookup value? Then I can reference Sarah. That is, I'm looking for Sarah. Remember, we have specified the age as the array here, so it will know that it will look in the age column. So I'll reference Sarah. I'll put it in quotation, and I would ask, the next argument says where. So where should I look for Sarah? Of course, Sarah is in the name column. So that's B1 to B5. So that's my lookup array, B1 to B5, and I'm looking for an exact match. And I'll close my bracket for match, and I'll also close my bigger bracket for index that I've opened. And then Excel can return the age of Sarah, which is 30 years old. All right, that is the basic explanation of the superhero concept of index and match. Let's get into the Microsoft Excel environment and see how this really pans out. Okay, so we're in the Microsoft Excel environment. I want to see how index and match happens again. I'm going to quickly walk us through them individually as functions and what they do, and I will look at them co-joined together as a powerful duo. Right, so index has 3 arguments, same as match. So let's quickly look at the arguments inside index, and let's use it to solve some things. So equal to index, And index has two lists of arguments actually, but we're going to be, for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to be dealing with the first list of argument where we have arrow, row number, and column number. Now, in index, basically index is supposed to return what is in, once we specify the exact place, the exact location. So array, big expanse of land, row number and column number is our coordinate, or our longitude and latitude that was supplying to the big expanse of land, and it will narrow it down to that exact location and give us what's in that exact location, right? Now let's look at that. So I've put index, I've said array, so I basically want to tell it, probably look at this expanse of land. I'll give you the row number, row 10, and I'll give you the column number, column 1. Give me what is in row 10 and column 1 in this entire array. So that's what I'll do. So my array that I want to specify is this product description. So I'll basically specify the entire array, right? So I would highlight the entire A to A, that is everything in column A, that's why it has A to A, comma, row number, row 10, I'm going to write 10, and column number. Now, because I already highlighted just one column, I mean, not necessarily it's an optional argument, but for the purpose of explanation, I could still put it. So one column, because it's just one column, and I'll hit my enter button, and it will give me what is in row 10 of column 1, of that column of that part. So we could double check what's in row 10. We saw Fisher price, and there we are, and Excel just basically gives it back up. Index just basically gives it back to us. However, of course, we know that when it comes to lookup, you won't know the row number and column numbers offhand, right? Now, let's quickly test something else, and let me use index, and let me specify outside my array. So let's say I specify this array, and I say row number 10, but I specify for it column 3. Remember, I didn't even highlight up to 3 columns, and we're going to have troubles because it's going to basically say it's not there. It's not, there is something wrong with the formula because it's not well written. So that's why once it's one column you're highlighting, the column index, the last argument becomes optional for you. In the same vein, if I have more than one column that in my entire array, I necessarily then need to specify, the column number. So this is what I mean, index, and I highlight these 3 arrays that contains product description, the price, and the reviews. So I say column A to C, I say row number 10. Now, because I've added row number 10, I definitely have to specify which column. It could be column 1, column 2, column 3, or because I have three columns or a wider array, right? I have to specify the column. If I left this like this and do not fulfill this last argument, I'm going to run into trouble still, right? Because I did not specify. Now I'm just going to continue this argument here, and I'm going to write column 3. That is, I want something from the number of reviews. So I'm going to hit enter, and it tells me there have been 41 reviews in that particular row. In that particular row 10 of the product description, number of reviews. So basically it just returns what's in that cell for me. It returns the value in that cell. If in this case I don't want something in column 3, maybe I want price, we'll just change it to column 2, very similar to column index number that we know in VLOOKUP. So it brings out the price of whatsoever is in row 10. I don't even know what's in row 10. If I want to know what's in row 10, I just need to change it back to column 1. Column 1 is where the name is, right? So I'll just change it back to column 1, and that basically gives me what's in row 10. All right, so basically that's what index does on its own. However, because we know that we can't always be guessing, or we can't always have a row number and column number offhand, we need another function that looks out for or that finds numbers and supply it to index to do that magic for us. And that's where match comes in. So let's look at match individually too. So I'll look at match. Now match has lookup value, lookup array, and the match type. So basically I may tell match that is look up this product name, Super Mario Deluxe, with the extended name. I'll say comma, it will have me look up array. Where should I look for it? I'll say look for it in column A, because column A is where the product description is. That's where it resides, but we just don't know where exactly it is. I'll say look for it and it will ask me what kind of match am I looking for. I want an exact match. Basically, what match will return to me is the position where it is. Basically, tell me where it is sitting. So I'll close it. It's basically that guy that then brings the coordinates together. So I'll hit enter, and it basically tells me it's in row 199. So if I go to my name box to go look to hit row 199, so let me change this to A199 and hit enter. We can see our product there, Super Mario Deluxe, blah, 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 the same guide we were looking for. So that's what match does. So let's quickly look for a way to put them together now. Let's quickly look for a way to put them together on this worksheet, that is index and match. So equal to. So in this case, let me quickly explain this data set. This is an Amazon data set that has the product description of different products on the website, the price and the number of reviews each of those products have. Now, this is an excerpt of the product. This is an excerpt of the product name here. That is, there are about 5 of them, yeah? And this data set extends to about 11,404. Now, you just need these 5 products. You need their price and their number of reviews. How do you use index and match to get what you need? So let's quickly start with index. So index, array, column number, and array, row number, and column number. That's what's in index. So we'll first specify the array. The array of what we are looking for actually is price, right? Price is what we want this guy to return. So I'm going to highlight, or I'm going to reference the price column. So we're back in price column. I'll say comma, the row number, the column number, we don't know where it lies, right? And that's where match comes in to come and give it to us. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to call match. So we're basically coupling them together, we're nesting them together. So I'll pick match. Now I have to fulfill the argument inside match. That is lookup value. Lookup value is creativity for kids, but the name of this toy. And I'm going to use my comma, the lookup array. So where should I find this toy? Of course, it's in a bigger array called product description. So I'm going to highlight the entire data set also. I'm going to highlight that. I'll say comma, and I want an exact match. I'll close the brackets for match, and I'll close the bracket for index. Now, basically, that's how index and match works. Now, it has gone to look at the entire data set, and it has found the price, that the price is $14. It's not coming back with a dollar sign because I didn't format this particular cell, but if I had formatted the entire cell to have the currency sign, of course it will come. So let's quickly double check if this did a good justice. So I'm just going to do Control F to look for it, and we'll look for it here, and Control V, find all. Creativity for kids toy is on row 76, and it is $14, and it is $14. We're correct. Now that we've gotten our price for this particular toy, the tempting thing is, oh, now I've gotten the concept of index and match, but not so fast, because you're still looking for the remaining 5, right? And you really probably don't even want to write the formula all over from your head again. You just want to drag and autofill and just go away. Now, there's a note of caution, especially if you've not been working with absolute referencing before, or you've never been locking yourself. Locking basically means you don't want, by the time you drag, you don't want Excel to shift. Excel naturally works by relative referencing, where whatsoever by the time I drag, Excel shifts to the next thing and to the next thing. But in this case, we really don't want a lot of things to shift. So let's look into our formulas and see the things that are static and the things that you really want to be dynamic, that you really want to shift Excel to shift to the next thing. And we'll basically then lock the ones that we don't want to shift. So let's quickly look at it. Now, look at your formula in the formula bar. It says index. The first argument inside it says index is array. The array of what I'm looking for is price, and my price is in column B. That's why we have the entire column B. But this time around, we want to also just drag this formula and go to number of reviews. But number of reviews is not in column B, it's in column C. So we want it to shift to column C. So I won't bother looking the first argument. Now inside match, the first argument inside match says lookup value. My lookup value is still this E2, right? E2 for kids sensory, creativity for kids sensory, whatever this long name is, right? It's still the same thing, at least for this price and this number of reviews. But by the time I come here, it's by the time I come here, my lookup value will change. It's not this E2 again. So we're going to look at two concepts of referencing right now. But at least let's first deal with how you want to extend to number of reviews. Now the question is, to extend to this number of reviews is in column C, so which means you want this BB to naturally shift. So you're good. E2, you don't want it to shift. It's still the same E2, it's still the same lookup value. So you don't want it to shift, so you would lock it. So I'll lock that by pressing F4 on my keyboard. Some other keyboards you have to press function and F4. So I'll just press F4 and you would see that there are $2 signs playing out here. $2 signs playing out here, and $1 sign is on my column E, and another dollar sign is on my row 2. Basically, I'm locking both column E and row 2. I don't want it to shift anywhere, so I can do that, right? And in my column, the next argument says inside match, and the next argument says in what's my lookup array. My lookup array is still the same product description. I don't want it to shift anywhere, so I'm going to lock this guy too. So I'm going to lock that guy, and I'm good, right? So my formula is still safe. Now I can safely extend this. To number of reviews. Now, because I am coming from a number formatting that has the currency, that's why it's extending currency here. I can easily take care of that in the number formatting group and change it to number. I don't want any decimal points, and I'll say okay. And this guy is good. However, you are not done, because the temptation is, since you don't want to write the formula all over again for everybody, you want to probably drag down. Now that's where another issue is, that you need to understand absolute referencing. So let's quickly look at it. So I'll first of all drag down and show you what I mean. I'm just going to assume that maybe I finished and I drag down, and you now have some headache because it basically is repeating everything for you again, and you're wondering, what have you done wrong? Right, you've not done anything wrong. So let's go back to our formula again. Now, if you notice, we locked our, so we can look through our formula. We locked our lookup value. We locked our lookup array. While our lookup array is so fine, because the lookup value that we're looking for is still in product description, so that is fine. But the problem is with the lookup value. If you look through the other cells that are returning the same answer, you will see that the problem is mostly with the lookup value. So let's see how we can then treat our lookup value, because for this first row that we attended to, yes, we wanted to lock the lookup value, right? But for the subsequent ones, the next one, we want this lookup value to shift from E2 to E3. Then when you're done with E3, you want it to shift to E4, and like that. So how do we do it? Which means E is a constant, column E is a constant, but the rows are changing. So you can basically go into your original formula and make E the constant. This is only column E that you will lock. Then you leave row 2 to be a free man. That is, so I'm locking column E, but row 2 should be able to change. So the next thing should be E3, the next thing should be E4, the next thing should be E5, E6, and like that. So how I'm going to achieve that is, I'm going to come into my formula here. I'm going to lock E. We've all agreed that E should be constant. However, the rows should be changing. So I'll take away the dollar sign in front of my 2, and I'll only lock my column E, and I'll hit enter again, and I will what's the word now? I'll replicate what I've done before. So I'll extend to this guy, right? It gives me, again, I'll take care of this formatting in the number group. Now that is done, you can now safely extend to the entire data set. All right, so let's quickly do that and see if we're still in. All right,
What's safe? Voila. So let's take this back to numbers. It's not supposed to be in currency. And I'm just going to come to number. I don't want decimal point because it's number of reviews. And there we go. We have been able to finish talking about index and match. All right. In the next video or in the next video for lookup functions, we're going to be looking at HLOOKUP and we'll see how sweet HLOOKUP can be. I hope this video has been very helpful to you. If so, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, like, and share.